and welcome to my channel. This is Teresa of Teresa's Crafty Cabana, and I had recently made a video about perfect pearls and clouds, and then I had this idea that how cool it would be to see the perfect pearls with bubbles. So I wanted to make a template out of circles so anybody could make a template like this. I'm just using 110-pound Nina White cardstock, and I cut out just a few different sizes of circles, and I'm only going to use the negative space of the circles. So if you don't know what perfect pearls are, there's a Ranger website, and they have this whole array of what you can do with perfect pearls, what they are. They're actually powders that have resin inside of them, mica and resin, so they'll stick to any sticky surface, or if you put water with them, then they'll stick to a surface. They're a little bit different than just plain mica because they actually have that resin that'll help them bond to their surface. So if you're interested in more about perfect pearls, they're a really cool medium. So here on the Gelli Plate, they actually stick to this sticky gel plate. That's how I'm getting it to apply. I'm not applying any other kind of Versamark or anything like that. It's just straight up the gel plate. Now I did clean my gel plate with some baby oil before I did this. Whether you do the baby oil before or not, it doesn't matter. I've tried it both ways, and the perfect pearls will stick to the plate. I decided to pull out all of the colors that I have in my perfect pearls, ranging from purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, pink, and I think a white, the white pearl. So I just went ahead and in a kind of rainbow order around the circles, started just putting color. I did keep them in kind of a rainbow order. I'm sure it would look just fine if you kind of mixed up the order of the colors, but I just liked blending them together, and I knew those colors next to each other would blend well together. So that's just the technique that I used. And then in the centers, I wanted to use the white to kind of bring the bubble together. But I guess you could bring the colors into the center if you wanted to try that as well. I just liked having the white there. And so I just kind of repeated this process for all of my bubbles. So I'll just play some music and you can just watch me paint these bubbles, and then I'll come back at the end of this part. So now that I finished all of the base part of my bubbles, I wanted to do a little layering, and for this I just kind of took the different sizes, overlapped them slightly with another bubble, and then I did the same process with the colors, just kind of surrounding the little circle with the exact same color process. Sometimes I would make the colors go to the left, sometimes I would make them go to the right. But the layering of the bubbles are what really make it look like bubbles in the end. So in the next few, I'm gonna overlap in more than one bubble. So sometimes it's just touching one, and other times I have a bigger bubble touching multiple bubbles. So I'm not gonna show the entire process of me doing this because it was pretty time consuming, but I figured I'd show you enough of them if you wanted to try to make something like this, to show you kind of what my process was. But I'd say use your creativity and just go for it. I will say when I was using this paper stencil, I had to make sure to press around the circle so that it was touching the gel plate nicely, just so that the powder didn't get underneath it. But other than that, it worked. To me, it worked just as well as using my plastic stencils. So if you don't have a stencil and you have a cutting machine or you have die cuts, you can pretty much make stencils this way for your gel plate. And I think it was really successful. Once I was done adding as many bubbles as I wanted to add, I did leave some white space. So I wanted to use a white in the background to pull all these bubbles off onto my print. I was thinking, and my husband was thinking too, that blue would be a nice color, like a light blue. So if I do this again, I think I'll try a light blue background, but I really didn't want to mess it up, and I knew the white would pull all those colors and you'd be able to see them really well. And I did use a decent size blob of the white paint and rolled that over the entire surface. For my last video, I had experimented with a little bit too light of an amount of paint, and it didn't pull everything off so evenly, so I made sure to put a decent amount of paint on just to give that the micas and the pearls something to stick to. So after rubbing it out, I did leave it to rest for about 5 minutes, and now I'm pulling off the paper from the gel plate. This actually does have a little more remnants than the last one that I had made with the clouds, but I'm gonna try to see if I can do a ghost print from that later on. So this is what the bubbles look like. In the light, of course, they shine really, really nicely when you put them in the light and catch all the colors in those bubbles, and I think they really do look like bubbles. To me, it looks really fun. So I started cutting apart my background because I wanted to try seeing what it would look like in a card. I thought it would be a cute little birthday card with the bubbles in the background. So I'm just going to show you real quick a card that I made using one of these bubbles. I ended up getting about 4. I could make about 4 cards out of this one background, and it would fit on an A2 sized card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm just using some Versamark ink and this happy birthday script font that I have, and I'm going to use some gold embossing powder. Now I am actually embossing over the white paint and over those perfect pearls, so I did use an anti-static powder tool. I just didn't show it, just to make sure that the powder from the embossing doesn't stick to those pearls. It did still stick a little bit, but I was able to knock most of it off. It was a really light embossing. Maybe the ink just didn't press through all the way, so since I was using my stamping tool, I just decided to do a second round of the embossing. And that did make it a little bit darker and more visible with the gold embossing. So to make those letters stand out a little bit more, I wanted to use I have an alcohol marker in gray. So I'm just going to give a shadow to the letters and to some of this little script detail in the words here. So now that I'm done with that, I had cut this piece of foam. It's foam with a sticker backing, and I just made it a little bit smaller than my card piece here. Before I applied the foam piece to this, I wanted to do a little bit of my twine, my gold twine, just because that print, I don't know if you can notice this, but the print didn't come all the way to the end, but I wanted to keep that size so that it would fit on my card base. So I just kind of used the twine to hide that little piece that the bubble didn't go all the way to the edge. And I'm making a little X out of my twine just to give it some interest. So this foam only has one side that's sticky, so I'm actually just applying the sticky side to the back of my card front, and then I'm going to use some double-sided tape that I have from scrapbook.com, and that's just going to adhere to my card base. So the card is mostly done, and you can see it's shiny with those bubbles, and then the gold embossing stands out really nice against the bubbles, but I thought it needed one more touch because there's just not enough sparkle on this already very sparkly card. So I used some of these little star sequin glitters that I have, and the way that I'm applying them, I didn't do a very good job filming this, but I don't have a fine tipped glue, so what I do is I put a little blob of glue on a scrap piece of paper, and then I just take a little strip of cardstock and I cut a point on it, and then I just dab that glue into the glue and then dab it onto my card, and that gives me a nice fine little dot of glue, so when I put these stars on, the glue isn't blobbing out of it very much, and I think it worked really well. So that is the completed card here, and that's how I made those bubbles. So I hope you try it. It is so much fun working with the perfect pearls on the gel plate. So please subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a like. Thanks for watching.